thank you so much to everybody that's joining us live or on the recorded version later on. This is an amazing topic. You can tell by the response that we've got, and I think in particular because Hel, it's you really. You're sort of renowned in terms of what you don't know about social media isn't worth knowing. So thank you so much for taking the time. I know how busy you are at the moment. I can only imagine. So and yeah, I think we should just get cracking. A really simple format. I think, Hel, you're going to take us through some slides, a bit of a presentation, and then we're going to really make sure we've got most of the session for questions, answers, thoughts. In terms of Zoom and how we're going to play the meeting, please feel free to carry on chatting in the chat box. We've got a Q&A box as well, so if you've got any specific questions that you'd like answering or for us to pick up, then please do pop them in there, and I'll kind of try and keep an eye on those as Hel, you're sort of leading the session. But yeah, I think without further ado, should we crack on?
Right then.
Fantastic.
Open up my screen and oh look, only 4 tabs open. I'm
Very
so
impressive.
like that. No, I've literally just closed down a 600 tabs. Hello everyone. I'm going to take you through a few thoughts about social media superpowers, and this is coming from the perspective as you as a professional, you as a person, rather than social media for your brand, for your housing organisation. So this is all about you and me as well. And hopefully you'll get a bit of a taste for potential for you. And I want you to just start thinking about what it is that it can do for you. So this will be quite quick. I'm going to take you through some things that you can think about, and then let's have a chat afterwards about different ways that we can do it. So yeah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how social media helped me in my career and just generally in my life, I suppose. And then I'm going to talk about how things that you can consider that will help you to use social media in a similar way that will be really helpful. Feel free to get your pen and paper handy. You don't have to actually, because I'll send a worksheet and you can, if you want that, you can have a go in your own time. But do get a pen, and I always like to get pens and papers and doodle while I'm thinking. That might just be me, but do if you want to. So I'm going to start off with a bit of social media context. So I started my career in local government. So already you're probably feeling my pain. I felt a little bit lost and overwhelmed when it came to my career, because in lots of organisations you can do your job and you can think that you're doing it all right, but you're not really sure. And if you don't get great feedback, sometimes you can have like a really busy manager who doesn't often get that time to do one-to-ones with you. Sometimes you just have massive imposter syndrome and you're not really sure if you're in the right job and why they picked you and all of that kind of stuff. And I had all of this. I'd started off as a press officer, and then I moved into other areas of communications. And I'll tell you what happened after that. So I wasn't sure if I was doing okay. I didn't get that much feedback on my work, mainly because I was beginning to use social media in my case. And the people that would have given me feedback didn't have a clue. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was back in the days of MySpace. So I was hardly going to have someone come and give me great feedback on the MySpace page when they hadn't even heard of MySpace. And I had this idea that I think I'm quite talented. I think that I'm good and I want to progress. I like my job and I want to do well at it, but I wasn't really sure how people get promotions. So I could see a lot of my kind of colleagues and they'd go, you just got to climb the ladder. And I think, well, what is this ladder? Where do I access this on the intranet? This whole thing about how you climb up a ladder. I don't see any ladders. It felt like everybody seemed to know what to do to progress in their careers. And I'd missed out on the class in school. And I just didn't even know if I was the kind of personality who could ever be a manager. So I kind of got the gist that if you want to progress, you have to go from where you are to being a manager of other people. And I felt like, I'm not really sure whether I want to manage other people. I quite like what I'm doing. I don't necessarily like other people. So I was just scared by the idea, even if I got a promotion, would I be able to do it? And I also saw a lot of people in the organisations that I'd worked in, the career people, be fairly ruthless and a bit selfish and basically not afraid to poo on the people below them to get where they wanted to be. And again, I felt like I love my career, but I don't want to do that at the expense of my own personal values and my own skill set. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't know where to start with being one of those ruthless people. So I felt lost and overwhelmed. And this happened at a time where I was growing this career using social media. But I did have this thing of, well, I'm doing all this work, so I'm getting awards for my work. And I know the results are quite good because the public are responding to my social media posts, let's say. So I had this idea that I'm really good at stuff. So maybe people will notice it and then I'll get a promotion. Or maybe they'll notice it and I'll get poached by another organisation. And this is massive tiara syndrome. So I don't know if you've come across this term before, tiara syndrome, but it's where you expect someone to say, yes, you're wonderful, I'm going to put the tiara on your head. I really believed if you're good, you'll get on. And I'm sorry to say, and I hate to crush your bubbles, everyone, but that is not how the real world works. You can be amazing at your job, and if you're low key and someone louder than you, someone more ambitious than you wants to get ahead, they'll get ahead quicker than you will. You have to acknowledge that there needs to be some active work from you to get on. If you know, get on can mean anything to you. It can be happier in your job. It can be getting a promotion, getting a new job, whatever it might be to you. I run my own business now. So I run Comms Creatives, which is a social media training company. So obviously I don't want a new job. My boss is amazing, it's me. And I still have ways that I can feel less overwhelmed and progress in ways that help me. That, you know, sometimes it's about I want to have more time in my job. Sometimes it's about I want to have a better network of people who can support me in the things that I want to do. But the difficulty I found was, okay, I recognize you got to network. You got to get yourself in the places where people recognize you and see you for the great professional you are. But I hate networking. I might be on Zoom now talking to loads of you, but I am actually quite shy and introverted in some ways. Like I find I can get on stage and do a big talk, but I'll get down off the stage, and as soon as someone talks to me, I'm like, oh, I don't know what to say to them. How do I manage this? So I felt this whole thing of pressed in the flesh, you know, going up to someone at a conference and shaking their hand and saying, hi, I'm Helen, I can do this, this and this, and will you employ me? I was just like, I'm not sure, do people do that? I don't know how to do that. What do you say to them? How do you even ask them for what you want? So if you do see someone who you think they could help me, how do you go about asking without feeling weird? And I wasn't even sure what I wanted. This is the hardest bit, I think. Maybe you don't know how you want to progress. You just know that you don't want to stay here forever. That is the situation I was in, and it's fine, because the answer, for me at least, and maybe for you, was social media. So I used social media, and particularly Twitter and LinkedIn. But at the time, Twitter was easier to do this, but you can do this on LinkedIn too. But I used it to become much more known amongst the people that I wanted to be known. So for me, I wanted to progress in a career in communications. And I wanted to progress, I think I did, you know, I think I wanted to stay in communications. I thought, well, I love the public sector and I love housing. So I became known by lots of people in housing, public sector organisations and communication circles. So they just know who I am. That already gives me an advantage. So when people are thinking about opportunities, whether it's giving you a speaking gig, whether it's asking for your advice and, you know, and remembering you for that so that they owe you a favour, being known by people instantly gives you a massive step ahead other people in your industry. Being liked by them, that's the next step. So I use social media for those people who know me, a portion of them, to actually like who I am. And a big part of my journey, we might talk about this afterwards, is recognizing that people like me, but not everyone's going to like me, and that's fine. Not everyone can like everyone, but once people start to like you, they want to help you. And when people trust you, they want to give you things. They want to give you opportunities. They want to give you promotions, jobs, work, whatever it might be. So for me, it was a much more long-term, organic way of networking, rather than having to go into that heartbeat. For me, like, my chest gets all red and excited when I have to go and talk to someone. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to say to them. What if I miss this opportunity? Like, if I'm chatting to someone who I think is quite important to my career, or I just think is really interesting, I hate when I have that feeling of, oh, I've missed my opportunity now. I've spoken to them and nothing happened. Whereas social media, if you have a conversation with someone, you may have another conversation and another one, and get to know each other until it becomes more natural that they give you that opportunity. So here's some specific examples about how I use social media. I indirectly schmoozed my chief exec. So I worked in, I'll tell you all the names because I'm sure he doesn't mind about it. I worked in Monmouthshire County Council. Our chief exec was amazing, Paul Matthews, and was on Twitter, which was great. I helped him get on Twitter and understand how to use it in a powerful way, but he was there. So instead of trying to get his attention all the time when he's busy and he's working on a zillion projects, and I wasn't in the same office with him at that time, I decided that I would look at everybody that he spoke to on Twitter. So rather than trying to get his attention, I started talking to the people that he spoke to. So that would be sometimes other chief execs in other local authorities. Sometimes it was people I'm like, I'm not really sure why he's talking to them, but they seem to be local. So, you know, and I added them to a list and I started to talk to those people. So maybe someone would share, I don't know, a news story. And I'd say, that was really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So nothing like massive, no massive insight exchange, no real work. But if they said, my God, it's freezing out there, I'd say, yes, chilly, put your coat on. Like small talk, basically. I small talked the people that my chief exec spoke to. Sometimes it was better than small talk. Sometimes it was like, oh, that's really interesting. We're working on something like that here at Monmouthshire. So it could be a little bit more meaningful. But it really didn't have to be. I just needed these people to know me, and possibly a portion of those people to like me and maybe trust that I know what I'm doing. I would say it was only, well, a couple of months of doing this. So I had a concerted, at the time I was a smoker, so I used to do this on my fag break. I haven't smoked since 2012. But I found a portion of my day, like 10 minutes, where I would talk to these people. And after a few months, the chief exec came to me in my office and went, hey, you move in some interesting circles, don't you? Someone was only saying about your work the other day. And I was like, that, I know, I made that happen. I made him feel like he'd discovered me in the organization, rather than having to go up and do a big presentation. I mean, eventually I had to go up and do a big presentation to him and tell him what I thought my job should look like. But it was a way of influencing him. So he felt like if other people are endorsing her and talking about her, then she must be quite good at her job. I just accidentally built this network of supporters by talking about things that I'm interested in to do with work, and sometimes not, but the kind of things that you talk about in a work setting. So I wouldn't have talked about getting absolutely lashed on the weekend, but I would have talked about maybe starting to run and what it was like as, you know, a fat girl learning to do 5K or whatever. So I talk a bit about that, and it started to connect me with other people who are into running. And I talked about my work, what was working, what wasn't. I asked questions. And when it came to setting up my own business, all I had to do is say, I'm setting up my own business. If anyone wants any training, let me know. And I instantly had a client list. This could have worked for almost any new thing that I had. I would have had this bunch of people who were there to support me, but people had known, liked and trusted me for a while, that they knew they wanted to work with me. And that was really helpful for me. If I'd have been on the job market and the person on the interview panel had known, liked and trusted me from being aware of me on social media, I've instantly got a bit of an edge, whether they're aware of it or not. They see you as someone who's kind of more influential and more capable of doing the job right. And I'd accidentally created a personal brand without really knowing it. I'm very deliberate about it now because I'm running a business with my sister, Comms Creatives. But I had done it anyway. I knew what my topics were. I talked about comms, I talked about local government and housing, I talked about running. These were the things that people knew me for. And when people know you for something, it's just so much better to have like useful conversations with them. So for you, I think thinking about Twitter and LinkedIn, what is the point of this? It's about raising your profile and reputation without feeling phony or arrogant, like you're always blowing your own trumpet. People get to know and like you without you having to say, I'm amazing, I got this degree, I did this experience or whatever. You build a network of people that are just cool. Like, it's really nice when you know cool people, because it makes you feel, I don't know, it makes life more interesting, doesn't it? And there's loads to learn from people on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. Lots of intel that you can get that might help you to do your job more effectively. So the one question that people ask me all the time, but what can I say? I've got nothing to say, they'll say. Like, I'm not interesting. What am I supposed to put on there? And that is ridiculous. I'm just as not interesting, but I am interesting. You know, you are interesting. You've got plenty going for you. You offer a unique perspective and you know stuff. So I'm going to take you through thinking about what your perspective is and how to start thinking about the topics that you do know about, that you can talk about. But you are unique. So you might be doing a job that, I don't know, a zillion other people are doing, but you bring your own experience, you bring your personality, and you bring different kind of views to what you're doing. So people will be interested in it. You've got to be yourself, right? So this is me at the age of, I think, 7. And you know, even at that age, I was kind of aware that I'm going to have to just lean into my own personality here. If I want to make a bin bag into a dress, that's just what I'm going to do. And that's the only way that you can.
That's amazing, by the way.
Thank you very much. See that whole trend of pink hair?
Absolutely.
I was well ahead. 1990s me was
ahead of the curve.
Ahead of the curve. Now, this wasn't what was fashionable at the time. But, you know, at work, I often felt like the people that I respected were so different from me. And I'd always try, you know, they use lots of jargon, but they use it in a really dynamic way. And I feel like, I'd never be able to speak like that. Or they'd be so organized and they'd be able to tell people what to do and all these things that I'd go, I can't do that and I can't do that. But what I wasn't focusing on, what am I? Like, who am I and what do I bring? Because I'm just as good as them. I'm just different. I don't have to be like them. Everyone else is themselves. Be yourself in this whole journey, especially if you're going to be on social media. Like, if you want to get people to like you, they need to like you. Otherwise it feels stressful. So a huge problem with social media, particularly for young, like teenagers and people in their 20s, is they go onto Instagram and they see people looking gorgeous, living the best life in the glamorous hotspots. And they don't realize these people aren't showing their true lives. There's filters on there. They're only showing you the good bit, and they didn't show you the bit where they argued with the boyfriend afterwards or whatever. And they compare their real lives with people's fake lives. This works in a professional context for you as well. Don't compare your real life at work with someone else's presentation of that. So if you go and look at my social media, you'll see a whole load of creative, fun, brilliant things. You won't see me on a Friday morning after I've taken my medication moaning with a big, like, no makeup on, being a grizzly old cow. Do you know what I mean? Like, and doing nothing all day. You just don't see this. Like, no one cares about what you're bad at. Start thinking about what you're good at and show them that, and don't compare your insides with other people's outsides. So the big buzzword in social media is around authenticity. So I had a look at authentic in the Google dictionary. Of undisputed origin and not a copy, genuine. Not a copy is the main thing for me here. Don't try and copy other people unless you be inspired by them. Take the best bits that you think are like yourself and play with them, but just don't try and think that because, I don't know, because your boss is a certain way, you have to be that way. You can do a brilliant job of networking and being professional whilst being yourself too. You've got to know who you are. That is the hard bit, I think. You know, if I ask you, do you know who you are? You're like, yeah, of course I do. But if I asked you, name the 3 things that represent your values and personality, it's not that easy. But once you know those things, you can really start to carve a bit of a personal brand. So I'm going to get you to do this. I'm going to get you out of these words to think about who you are, by narrowing it down to 3 words from this list. So don't worry if you don't want to do this. Think about it now. But I'll put this into a worksheet so you can come back to it if you want to. But I've bolded up the words that are my words. So I went through this and I just crossed off the words that definitely are not me. So teamwork, off. Grace, off. You know, there's no point in getting embarrassed about the things you're not. I'd love to be a team worker, but it's just not my strength. So I crossed it off. Keep crossing them off until you come down to the ones that you think, no, that is actually me. I do think that is me. And if you can get it down to 3, then you have this brilliant little pot of, this is what I represent, especially when I'm talking to people on social media, but it's useful for your whole work life really. So have a look, see if any of these kind of jump out at you of that's definitely important to me, and then get really brutal and start crossing out anything that isn't definitely something that you're 100% into. So I really value creativity. If I can't have that in my job, I don't want to be there. I get so bored. I could cry. And I'm like that in my life as well. Normally these things won't be just about work. They'll be completely about you as an individual. If someone asked me to look for best practice in my job, I instantly just went, I don't want to look at best practice. I want to do something better than's already out there. I want to do something new, something original. That was something really important to me. And independence, it's like the opposite for me of that teamwork thing. I always want to have control around where I go and that freedom for me. So have a look at these. Is assertiveness really important to you? Is actually power really important to you? You don't have to share this with anyone, just know who you are, and you can shape your career in a way that allows you to revel in those things, rather than sometimes being a bit shy about it. I'm not going to go around saying, I'm going to go on a teamwork course because I'm not very good at teamwork. Sod it. Forget what you're bad at. Look at what you're good at and massively enhance that and blow it up and show people that when they see on social media, they'll say, who's that? Oh yeah, she's the independent creative one. She's the one that always does original work. They're not going to be looking, and if someone asks who's that person, they're not going to be saying, oh, she's the one that's not very good at this thing. They're going to say she's known for this, and it'll be your strength. So the next thing I want you to think about is, what should people know about you? So if you're going to have this network of people on social media, what do you actually want them to know about you? Think about these things. What strengths do you think you've got? What are you really good at? What do other people say that you're good at? Sometimes that's different, sometimes it's not. If other people say you're good at something, please accept it. Being modest in your own head is useless. Be modest out, pretend to people that you're being modest, but if other people are saying that you're good at stuff, you're good at it, so just own it. What do you get excited about at work? That kind of thing can really help you to kind of go, because I've got this excitement, because I love getting my teeth into that. It's something that I'm really good at. It's my superpower. I always got excited about problems. If there was a problem there and I could go home and start thinking about an original idea on how to solve that would really get my juices flowing. But maybe there's something else that really gets to you. Maybe you get excited when there's some writing to be done, or maybe you get excited about meetings and you just love meetings. Whatever it is, think about that. And what do you spend most of your time doing? Because whatever you spend most of your time doing, you're probably an expert in. And you can compare yourself to the world's best expert in that. But, you don't have to be the world's best to be knowledgeable and have something useful to share. You just have to be doing it all the time and you'll be good at it. So please don't forget, people will be interested in your experiences, ideas, and tips on all of these things. So, you know, if you've got a strength, you'll be able to share interesting stories and ideas and tips on that thing with other people who are interested in that thing. And this is just one last thing for you to think about. So if you're using Twitter or LinkedIn and you're trying to kind of create this really interesting network of people who just love what you're talking about, try and be known for something. So pick 1 to 3 areas of expertise or interest and make a concerted effort to talk about those things once a week or once a day. You know, you pick how often, but think about, you don't want to be everything, because no one will remember you if you talk about, I don't know, if you talk about cats one day and you talk about hire recruitment the next day, and then you're talking about chocolate and you're talking about everything. Like, if you consistently talk about a topic, people will begin to know you for that topic, and then they see you as the expert in that topic, and then they'll always come to you with opportunities and for help. So think about the things that it might be. It might be your job. So maybe you want to talk about the topic of generally UK housing, generally local government. Maybe you want to talk about your profession. So it might be finance or construction or communications for me. That might be one of your topics. You could talk about your professional interests that aren't necessarily just the whole topic of your job. So for me, I'm really interested in behavioural economics, because I'm a nerd, you know, creativity. I think it's really interesting how many people suffer from imposter syndrome in their job. But maybe you're really passionate about mental health in the workplace, or leadership or digital transformation, or making sure you've got a diverse workforce. Like, pick a thing that you're interested in and then start talking about it. People begin to know you for that, and then they'll always ask you your opinion. They'll ask you to come to conferences. They'll ask you to, you know, whatever it is that you want. You'll start to be a person that people look to. And don't be afraid to talk about your life as well. You can have that as one of your topics. Make it something that will connect you with other people. So as I say, like, it's the kind of topic that you don't want to be talking about something, I don't know, if you're into S&M or something, maybe leave that for Facebook to talk about. But, you know, gigs, podcasts, writing, running, parenting, travel, film, books, these kind of topics that you might well chat to someone in a conference about, in a work environment about, rather than just airing your dirty laundry. You know, there's quite a big difference between telling everyone about your life and picking a subject that you think will connect you with other people. So what are you going to say? Just bear in mind, there's 2 ways of doing things. You can proactively post, or you can reactively post onto Twitter. We're talking about Twitter and LinkedIn because they're the easiest places for you to kind of grow this and feel more confident that you're doing the right thing. So proactively is going, hey, I've got this thing I want you to see, talk about, tell me about, answer a question about. Reactive is seeing someone else's post and commenting on it. If you lack confidence, I would say start off with a focus on reactive content. Just respond to other people, add a bit of value, make them feel good. When someone posts on social media, it's not the worst thing that can happen, actually. The most disheartening thing that can happen is that nobody responds to you, and you just feel like a bit of I posted something up and it was pure tumbleweed in response. Nobody's interested in me. So if you see someone and they've posted on social media, they're inviting a response. If you give them a response, they'll love you for it. They'll want you to, you know, the reason they put it up there is that they wanted someone to respond. So know that you're making people feel good, and perhaps you can respond to people that you really would like to get to know better, because it's a good way to kind of make them notice you. But we can do proactive as well. So proactive content, think about your topics, your 3 topics that you've picked that you're going to talk about in those areas. Share news about those topics. Maybe, you know, if you're like me in communications, I'd be looking at PR Week and communications blogs. There's not going to be that much, but sometimes there'll be news stories that I can share. But if whatever profession you're in, there might be an industry area of news. But if you see some news and you think, this is on one of my topics, this relates somehow to one of my topics, Share it with just a sentence that just describes why you think it's interesting or important. So add some value to it. This is a great article. And even if it's as simple as, this is a great article, anyone who works in comms would love it. Even if it's that simple, just write some, don't just put the title of the piece of news and share it. Like, add some value, like like you would say to your friend, oh, have you seen this story? Make sure it feels like it sounds like you. Ask questions and request recommendations. Like, that is a really easy one to do. So I might say, has anyone got a great app for video editing? Or does anybody know a good blah, blah, blah? Like, think of your topics. And if you want to know the answer to something, get a whole bunch of people to help you with that. They'll love feeling like an expert and finding someone else who's interested in the same topic as you. And if you want to be proactive at posting and getting people to respond to you, start thinking about what you're responding to. What do you react to? And why does it make you want to react? Because then you can start to apply that to what you're posting as well. Share other people's good work. Like, I saw this great friend of mine who works in local government had done this planning guide at work that was how to do a social media campaign, I think. No, just a comms campaign. And she did it in the format of Snakes and Ladders. So I just shared it and said, this is brilliant. Like, you should look at this. Like, share stuff that's useful, and other people that find that useful as well will really remember you for sharing it. And the person who created it will enjoy the fact that you're plugging it for them. And, lean into your personality. As long as it's right, like, sometimes for me, I've got different topics, right? But the workplace and the experience of the comms person is a big one. So when I saw a story about the fax machine, I thought, oh, back in the day, I used to use a fax machine. So I put this tweet out, hands up if you're old enough to have used a fax at work. It got tons of replies from people talking about different experiences they had about using a fax, including one woman who apparently met her husband via the fax machine, which I thought was quite cute. And this is just a random one. You don't have to follow the rules. You don't always have to stick to your 3 topics. Sometimes if I'm just at a train station and I start thinking about flakes and twirls because I'm on a diet or whatever, and I'll share that, and it weirdly gets responses. Like, once you're confident, you'll start to see these people as friends. Not real friends, like not actual friends that are there for you when you actually need them, but pals, people that are just up for a bit of a laugh, a bit of a chit chat. Like neighbours, that kind of thing. And yeah, just feel like you can respond. This is National Housing Federation. I saw that they'd done this this campaign, and I thought, oh, actually that applies to my own experience. So I'm going to respond to this by just talking about how I was thinking about this topic in my own life. It's useful. Again, remember, like, people want to hear, people want people to reply to them. So if you respond, you're just kind of showing that you're a thoughtful person, that you're there, you're interested, and you're taking part in the conversations that happen around the issues that your job is about. And again, I saw something the other day. A comms professional was talking about living as a person of colour, a mixed person of colour, and all the kind of stupid things that people say that make her feel uncomfortable. And I thought to myself, well, actually, I'll share this because other people, I've got plenty of people who are interested in this subject and have this kind of experience. And I put my own spin on it. So I didn't just share it and say, this is good. I said, well, actually, as someone with Irish heritage, no one ever asks me where I'm really from. And it's just adding to a conversation. So your personal brand will grow with you. This is the thing. Like, don't not do anything because you don't feel confident that you're going to stick to that topic, that you're always going to be in that job, or you're always going to feel the way that you do. It can grow with you, but do something. It's better to be there talking to people in a nice, friendly, meaningful way, and then have to tweak it, than it is to just not do it because you're waiting to be perfect. Nobody's interested in perfect people on social media. There is no such thing. So just go in there, show your best self, help other people to feel liked by responding to them. You know, get to trust and know people, and you will reap rewards. You may not know what they are yet, but the more effort you put in, the more you'll get out. I've got so many opportunities. I've spoken in like Montenegro, and I've gone to Boston, and I've had, like, I can run a business that I love and occasionally have a day in bed when I can't be bothered to get up. Like, it's living the dream for me, and whatever your dream is, it can help bring you in that direction. Okay, so before we get into a chat, I just wanted to tell you quickly that we do lots of housing social media training. We've trained, what does that say? I can't remember the exact thing. 285 people in 59 housing organisations. And we do think, I do, and I work with my sister, that's the we feel like we can radically change tenant engagement. The issue is ghost towns. So there are so many Facebook pages, there are so many online communities that are just kind of either people go there to moan, or they're ghost towns and no one's saying anything. We haven't developed this productive online community engagement that we need to get to at some point, which is why we've made the UK Housing Social Media Academy. So it's about skills and community and increasing the impact of housing in the UK generally. So I'm whizzing through this. We've got the whole social media expert course, which is 12 hours of training, like everything you need to know to be a brilliant social media expert, monthly webinars, like templates and guides on how to engage tenants, and just a helpful community for networking support. So if anybody wants to join, I'll put a link in the worksheet as well, so if you want to have a look. But that's the end of me talking. Tell me about what you're thinking, I mean, Sarah, I'd be interested to know, have you got any benefits from social media, or how do you feel like your superpowers show?
So, yeah, good question. So, I mean, Helen, I mean, I can, by the way, that your online course looks amazing. I mean, we met a few years ago, didn't we, when you came into the housing association that I work for and really helped us to understand what on earth we needed to do with social media. And our sort of problem at the time was how we reached our tenants, how did we talk to our residents, and how we could use social media to do that. And so you came in and did some amazing work with us. And although I've left now, I still keep in touch with the guys, and I can see, you know, I follow their social media accounts, and it's just amazing. But yeah, love it. Yeah, my social media superpowers, I don't really feel like I've got any. And that sounds dreadful because I've just said how wonderful that course we did 2 years ago. But, you know, I kind of feel like I have a flurry and I get really into it. And then I sort of, everyday life sort of takes over. And then I sort of have a bit of a crisis of confidence and think, gosh, what am I really saying? Who am I talking to? No, you know, what does anyone care, kind of thing. And I think for me, everything you just said there is absolutely amazing and has reaffirmed, you know, what made me remember what you'd said those few years ago. But it's about being yourself, isn't it? And it's ultimately about making connections and speaking to interesting people. And
not being too tough on yourself as well, because we all have those phases where we just go off it, like life gets in the way and you're just not there for a while. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, one of the things I struggle with, and we've had a few questions in, so, and they kind of link really, is there are so many different platforms, aren't there? So I use Facebook and Instagram in personal life, and kind of they fit in wherever, and you post some holiday snaps, and you kind of, you know, it doesn't take over too much. But in a career context and in work life, it's Twitter and LinkedIn, isn't it? And I had two specific questions about Twitter and LinkedIn, and kind of, you know, are they good for different types of posts? Do you post the same things on both? How do you manage that? Because, you know, if you're putting a bit of thought into it and you're kind of posting on Twitter, but actually then you're missing a trick on LinkedIn, do they have different audiences? Have you got any tips for how we deal with that?
Yeah, I think it's useful for you to kind of think who you want to talk to. So what kind of people do you want to speak to? And is it people that, you know, a lot of it might be other professionals in the housing sector, or perhaps it might be other professionals in your specific discipline, whether you work in, I don't know, I keep saying HR or comms or whatever. But think about the audience that you want to talk to, and they'll be both on Twitter and LinkedIn. So theoretically, you could put similar content in both of those places, but you just want to be aware of the differences on the platform. So if you're talking on LinkedIn, you have, like, there'll be different kinds of people who use LinkedIn to Twitter. Most people will have a favorite, so they'll be on most. So a lot of people will use LinkedIn because they feel like it's safe, it's very clearly about work, and a lot of people will say, well, I don't really want to talk about anything other than work, so LinkedIn's a great place. Twitter has got a bit more of a wide culture, so people will be talking about work there, but they'll also be talking about other stuff. So you can talk about, you know, I think you can use both, but be aware that there will be some people on LinkedIn who are just not interested in the personal stuff at all. Yeah, I wouldn't put anything about, I mean, I don't run anymore. But when I was running, I wouldn't use LinkedIn to talk about like, oh, it's amazing to get up this morning and do a 3K run or whatever. I'd stick to the work side of things because LinkedIn is so work and professional focused. But they're very similar places. You can do different things. So there's a different, like, you can share slides on LinkedIn and they work really nicely. Like people can slide across, and that doesn't really work on Twitter. So I'd think in terms of the kind of content that I'd share, I wouldn't share slides on Twitter, but I would share them on LinkedIn. But generally you can have the similar kind of conversations if you're thinking about building your professional brand. Similar on both.
We've had another question that kind of follows on really, and it's from Michelle about how do we put time aside for this? You know, how much time? I suppose it's how long's a piece of string, isn't it? You know, how much time would you suggest putting aside for social media content?
I would say
posting?
It doesn't matter how much time, as long as you make it relatively consistent. So perhaps you haven't got more than 5 minutes a week, in which case say I'm going to go on there 5 minutes every Friday morning, but go back every week and do it. And for me, the way I would do it is I would say, well, I'm going to spend between, I don't know, 10 minutes and half an hour twice a week. Let's say I go for that. You need a minimum to make sure that you're putting in the effort, and you need a maximum to make sure that you don't get lost in a rabbit hole and then go, I can't do this, I haven't got time for it. So I'm not very good at TikTok because I've spent so many hours lost in TikTok that I've had to just kind of make I'm not going on it for a while, like decision. Because, you know, and don't feel like you have to be good at everything. Just pick a platform, pick the one that you're most comfortable with, so whether it's Twitter or LinkedIn or somewhere else, but they're the main places for professional networking. Pick one place and say, I'm going to do a minimum of this and a maximum of that, and make it achievable and make it regular so that you don't lose your momentum. I think sometimes you can lose your confidence if you don't go back and constantly just be there and listen. You know, spend a lot of your time listening to what other people are saying.
But it's back to one of your original points, isn't it? About just thinking through the purpose, isn't it? Why are we doing it? What we're trying to get out of it, and then achieving balance, isn't it? You know, getting that sort of equilibrium that feels like, you know, it's working, and not being afraid to test and try, is it? And fail, actually, if we, you know, what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. Most people are not out to get you. So if you try something out and it doesn't work, usually the worst that'll happen is that no one responds to you, and that's it. But think about it like, if you go to a conference, you probably, I know I might be talking from my personal experience here, I kind of force myself to hang around for at least 10 minutes once the conference is done, so that I can at least try and have a chat with people. And just see it that way of like, I'm here, it's only polite to chat to this little group and see if there's anyone there interested, and then if you happen to enjoy it, you might stay for an extra beer. But you just make that effort to just be social before you go. I mean, it is social media, isn't it? It's not
absolutely
so try to be a bit social.
You know,
I
always remember you said something again a few years ago, and it was about kind of commenting on other people's posts, you know, and almost just that you know, it's not a nice thing to do, isn't it? And it's that feeling that kind of everybody else knows each other. So it's like walking into that conference where everybody knows each other, and you've got to kind of go up and speak. I'll be the only person that nobody knows. Well, that's not true in real life, is it? You know, and it's not true on social media. It's, you know, if somebody comments on your post, it's like it's a great feeling, isn't it? So being able to do that back is
definitely. Yeah, it's good. And if you see someone that said something interesting that caught your eye, tell them, I thought that was really interesting, thanks for sharing it. Like, make sure that, like, because that's what you want back as well. So give before you expect to get it back.
Absolutely. We've got a few more questions, so I just want to make sure that that I've caught everybody. So I'll read this one out because this looks like a bit of a long one. So the organisation I work for has guidelines in place of what we can and can't do on social media because of obviously impact on reputation. How can I be myself and promote myself without people thinking it's the opinion of where I work, showing who I am rather than who I work for?
Well, so you can put it in your bio. You can put it in your Twitter bio and say, these are my opinions, not those of the organisation I work for. But I would take that as read. If it's your face and your name, as long, like, don't say anything that is going to bring your organisation into disrepute, and you'll never have a problem. Like, if you've got those 3 topic areas, then it gives you a nice bit of focus that you can kind of say, right, well, I'm going to talk about being, I don't know, being a single mum who works as well, or something. Like, I don't know, that's not my experience, but like, maybe it's, for me, it might be living with a chronic health condition and running a business. Like, so you can pick something like that that is kind of personal, and that's your opinion. Of course, that's of your opinion, that's everything. As long as you're not being critical of your employer, then I doubt it's ever going to get picked up. But also things like, whatever your profession is, talking about the hot issues there, there's nothing in any policy that's ever going to restrict you from talking about those things. So it's maybe pick one topic first rather than 3 and start playing around with that idea. And yeah, the do's and don'ts thing are usually, in any policy, they're usually not very wide ranging. You know, do not bring us into disrepute, do not, you know, we know that we wouldn't do that anyway.
We again, where I used to work, we thought quite long and hard about that actually, and that was some of the certainly some of the reservations of perhaps, you know, previously that we'd had about, oh gosh, how can people sort of, you know, be talking about this, that and the other. And actually I used to work in policing as well, and we had a big thing around that, and we suddenly realized, you know, we've got these guys and girls out there saving lives, doing, you know, making these life and death decisions every single day, and yet we don't trust people to do things on social media. It's nonsense, isn't it? So, you know, and the force that I work with, again, had an amazing comms department and took that approach, and it was one of the best ways that we engage with communities. So you know, it's just common sense, I think, isn't it? And, you know,
it's fighting that internal fear that it's going to go wrong, but we all feel that, and just recognize that it's not, like, it's most likely not going to go wrong. I'm not going to say the wrong thing if I've thought about what the kind of person I'm talking to and the kind of topic that I'm talking about. It should always be fine. And, you know, like, that's not doing anything because of fear of something that might happen that probably won't, is going to hold you back, and you have to take that little confidence leap sometimes and just do it.
Absolutely. We've got another, again, sort of linked question from somebody that's saying they'd really like to build their platform and make their profile public, but are concerned about everything being so public. So have you got any advice for that person?
If you're concerned about what you might have said before and all of that, just make a new account and have a professional account that you use, and start from scratch, and start to follow people that you respect, and start to look at the kind of stuff that they put out and think, well, that's clearly all right, so maybe I can put similar kinds of things to do with my interests. But yeah, if you're concerned about previous posts, then just start afresh, I would say, or go, I mean, who can be bothered going back through all of their posts and checking it? I mean, what are you checking it for? If you, like, when I worked for local government, for instance, I couldn't say anything about politics. I was in a politically restricted role, and, you know, there's so much you can say that isn't about politics. Like, it's really easy to find things that you can talk about. Really, just put all the things that you can't talk about in a box and say that's that. What's left? Loads of stuff. What's it like to work where you work? What's the news in your industry? All those kind of things. And they're more interesting than they sound.
Definitely. And then that's the other bit, isn't it? It's sometimes just thinking, what have I got to say? You know, but you manage it every day. I never stop talking, usually, most people would say. You know, it's just the confidence of typing it down, isn't it? And so we've got 2 more questions, I think. I'm conscious that we're already nearly at 1 o'clock, so I knew it'd go super fast. So again, fairly linked. So one person has sort of said they had a large following on a social media account that was linked to their employee's name. and they had to hand that over to their employee when they left that job.
That's it.
Yeah, so any tips on sort of reconnecting, growing the audience? And then the second question, again, which is sort of linked, I think, is just really interested to know how some posts do gain such momentum and views, and others don't, although they might be really related. So again, any tips?
I'll start with the second one then. So why do some get loads of views and some don't? Now we do this in the Social Media Academy. So this will be like a summed up version of it. So we do study how you can do it. But if you want people to talk to you and get lots of engagement, you need to make it an opportunity for them to talk about themselves. Nobody's interested in, talking about a brand. No one wants to talk about a company. They want to talk about their own experiences and their own kind of perspective on things, and have an opportunity to feel good. So if I put a post out asking people, what's your favorite app? I could say, what I could say is the best app for creating great little videos is Apple Clips. And a couple of people might look at that and go, oh, good recommendation or whatever. But where's the invitation to have a conversation or to share that? Not much. If I said, what's your favorite app for creating content? Mine is Apple Clips. Then other people start to give their answers. And then other people will see that, because then the post gets a bit bigger and a wider reach. And then they start to put people want to recommend, they want to talk about what they know. They want to share something that they can talk about that doesn't make them unhappy. If you think of all the rage on the internet, all of the horrible stuff there, if you can offer an opportunity for someone to feel like they know something and share it, or feel like an expert, or feel connected with someone over a shared topic, it'll always do really well. That's a really simple way of putting it. The other one, if you've given up your account, I'm guessing it's Twitter that we're talking about here. It was a Twitter account that you had to hand over, which is like a serious boo-hoo moment, that you did all that work to build that network. I would just go back into that, use your new account and follow everyone that you had followed previously, which you may have done already, but you know what I mean? Like the Twitter account that's there should still be public, and you should be able to just click the following button and then kind of go through all of those people. Just reconnect, we're all in housing, I think, here, so we can use that hashtag UK housing. So a few people might kind of come across you from following that hashtag, but just go and really actively follow the people that you want to follow back, and start to talk to them. Start to respond to their tweets, and it'll always grow nice and easily that way. Again, I do it, so I haven't done it for a while, but I'll go in phases. So I'll say, right, I'm going to follow like 20 influential people in the social media world every day for a week. And then by the end of the week, you've got 140 new people. And usually about kind of between 50 and 70% of those people will follow you back. As long as your bio, when they see your Twitter thing, they can see that you've got something in common. So do write something in your Twitter bio that says, I'm really interested in whatever it is that you're interested in. Like, I like to chat about whatever. On my Twitter bio, I think I've got like cat lady. I'm always happy to talk about cats. Social media trainer, so people will know that I'm into social media, and so when I follow them, they'll know, right, well, that is someone I want to follow back. Great. And just don't be harsh on yourself. Just take everything in small steps, but make them regular steps. Just try and put it into the diary as something that you always do at this time of day or this time of the week, and it'll grow.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I think we're just about done with the questions. We've got a couple of minutes left. So, to sum up, it's kind of, we've just got to get on and have a go, haven't we, really? And you said you've got a worksheet, so we can get that out to everybody. I'm sure after this we'll have everybody's contact details, everyone that's sort of signed up either now or will be watching the recorded version. So we will get that out to everyone. So it's always good to have a bit of an action list, isn't it? Things that we kind of take away. And I'll definitely be doing the kind of grid about things that I'm not so good at, and what it's because when I looked at that, it's so difficult, isn't it, to sort of actually pinpoint what are those 3 words that really
yeah,
definitely. So
and then going, oh, but I like that and I like that, and then have to pick one. But it's so helpful if you've got that list of like 3 things, because You know, I use it when I think about, well, what I'm going to say here. And I think, well, I'll try and make it creative. Or if I'm going to go to an interview, like, what do I want them to know about me? I want them to know that I'm creative or whatever. You just make sure that you push your strengths so that they're obvious for people to see.
Absolutely. And I take it that we'll have the sort of details in that worksheet about your new course and all that. So if anyone is interested, then absolutely they can, and I'm sure we'll get in touch. We've already had a few comments saying that people absolutely be in touch. So sounds fantastic. Thank you so much, Helen. It's been really, really good. It's flown. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in. I hope you've got everything that you expected out of the session. We've got a great programme of wish sessions still in the diary. I think very much going on till, Siri telling me I'm welcome. Even Siri enjoyed it. But yeah, we've got a programme of sessions going right the way through till Christmas and perhaps beyond, who knows. But if you've got any particular topics, things that you want us to talk about, either in the regions or sort of nationally, then get in touch with your local regional representatives, and we'll do our very best. So yeah, thank you again.
No,
it's been great.
You. Lovely, and lovely to see a nice face.
You too. I'll speak to you soon.
See you soon.
See you. There's the Zoom wave. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.